Hi guys, let's start by showing you my project I'm working on, and to explain it I need to tell you what a sprite sheet is. Now I'm going to have a little animation in my project, and to make an animation you need to have a series of still images saved usually as one image, and then the code will reference different parts of this image to make the final animation. So here's a sprite sheet made by Jim Henson Muppet Company, and I'll show you what it looks like. So if I go like this, go down to here, you can see it. Although it's a very slow animation, it's still considered an animation because it's a series of different images that make it look like the character's moving. Okay, so that's a sprite sheet. This is considered a sprite. I've just made it into a floating widget, and this is just a Google widget I made on my desktop. Okay, now let's actually look at the project I'm going to start. And this is really not meant to be a tutorial on how to do it. It's more of just almost like a blog, just updates on the progress of my first video game project. So, my idea for the first video game is kind of like Asteroids, sort of shooting up asteroids with a spaceship, except it's more based on maybe something like microscopic creatures and what it might look like inside of an organism if you're going around shooting the bad organisms and the good cells have to be safe or something like that. I'm not too sure yet, but it's basically just a project to help me learn how to write a video game, design one from scratch. Okay, so let's go over to this program here, and this will be my starting point, and this is going to eventually be some sort of like a germ or a virus, and it'll look kind of like an octopus type creature. So what I need to do now is make some sort of tentacles or something. And so what I'm going to do is just grab the cone I started drawing earlier and go over here and increase the height of the cone to something like that. And that's pretty cool. I think I'm going to increase it a little bit more, and if I wanted to I could change the radius of the tip to make it smaller, like so. I could change the radius at the other end to make it a bit fatter. Okay, but I think I'll leave it what it was because I liked it. And now I just need to basically spin that around all the way. And I've actually done this already, so I'm going to say unhide all. And there they are. And I can look at this little virus creature from all different angles. Okay. And the software I'm using is called 3ds Max, and it's the same software they use in video game companies to design special effects and creatures and interface items. They also use it in the automotive industry, the architecture. Architects use this software to do fly-through animations, and they also use this software in the film industry. Okay, now there's one key element here, and I want to apply a modifier to it called bend, and that's where I'm pointing over here. And I've already done this, so you can see what's going to happen. And I've animated the bend so that when I rub this slider back and forth, it kind of curls up on itself. If I do that all the way, it does that, and it repeats that. Okay. Now, when it is bent like this, I can also adjust things like the angle or direction. If I adjust the slider here, I can have it go like this. And so it does something like that, which is pretty cool. Okay. Anyway, so that's the first step in coming up with an idea. Maybe this thing is a baddie. It looks kind of like a bad thing. And then if the idea works, then of course I could go into more detail and sculpt using sculpture tools to make this creature look a lot more exciting and interesting, both with texture and color, and maybe add some more sort of little details. Okay, so now let's pop over to the code and see what we can what I can show you. Okay, so I've got a couple different snippets of code I've written, and I'll show you the first one first. And basically, this is just me figuring out how to do different things. So setting up variables, setting up the screen size, and testing out different types of things that I'm going to try to do. So let's just press play on this code. Okay, so here I've got the beginnings of a 2D scroller game. So that basically means that you're going left and right, usually either a character or a vehicle, and the dots, the black dots, are generated randomly, the colored dots are generated randomly, and they're moving at different speeds, which is an effect that was pioneered by Walt Disney films to make things look like they're 3D when in fact they're only 2D. And the reason is, as you're moving across, things that are far away look like they're moving slower, things that are closer to you look like they're moving faster. Okay, so that's that first one. Let's close that. And I was just testing to see if I can get some sort of a scrolling scrolling background. Let's see what this next one does. Okay, this is, let's see. Okay, so now I've added buildings instead. This is a different idea I was coming up with, but a similar premise. And the main thing about this is I wanted to test to see if I can get the spaceship to move. So this is just a rough sketch that was in my sketchbook. I scanned it in, deleted the white background around it, added a little shadow, and I have got my keyboard arrow keys controlling it. Okay, so that was working. Okay, bit of a problem though, because if I press two keys at once, like for example down and right, it only does the most recent one. So down, right, it only does the most recent one. What I really want it to do is fly diagonally. So let's close this. And this bit of code that I learned how to make is basically just testing to see if I can get more than one key to be recognized at the same time. Okay, and it's basically a multicolor Etch-a-Sketch. If you don't know what an Etch-a-Sketch is, look it up online, but it's basically a drawing toy where you just go left and right and draw things. So if I go like this with my arrows, and then I can go down, but if I wanted to, I can go right and down at the same time. Okay, up, up and right, up and left, left, and I added a couple more just to be fun. So S and W. W makes it get bigger, S makes it get smaller, until it actually reverses in on itself. So I'm satisfied that I'm able to make an interface where the game control is using more than one input key at the same time. And that was what this test was for, but of course it's a lot of fun to just play with it in its own right. Okay, so the next thing is to get that octopus creature as an animated, remember we called this a sprite? An animated series of pictures. So let's show you the pictures. There they are. There's quite a few of them. I haven't saved them as a sprite sheet yet, so this is using code just to open up and display one image at a time in sequence. And there they are. So let's minimize that. Let's look at the code for a second. And what we have is velocity. We've got speed and direction. Okay. Background image loading. There it's loading the background image, which in this case is called background1.jpg. It's also loading another image, which is a microscopic cell of an image, and it's loading up the animation, and there's an index for the squid, and that means that there's 100 different images of the squid, and it's going to load them in one at a time and display them. This draw sequence right here, this bit of code, is going to basically draw the background right there, and then it's going to update the position based on the speed and direction of each of the items. Okay, and we've actually got the image from up here. This one is called image, And that position is going to be determined by the mouse value in X and Y. And it's going to take into account the size of the display screen. Okay, so let's see if it works. Okay, my background is just a test. In fact, all of this is just placeholders until I design the final elements. So that octopus is going to be a lot more complicated looking using sculpture and painting tools. This cell I just downloaded off the internet, but eventually it'll be handmade, either 3D or 2D, and the background obviously will be a lot more interesting as well. But this test, if you will, proves that these elements are working in the code, and that is how coding is easier to learn if you break things down into small chunks. Okay, if you tried to do the entire thing and write all the code for the entire game, it would be very confusing to figure out what's wrong if anything goes wrong, and something always goes wrong. Just a simple typo will make it not work. But if you break it down into small chunks and test each piece individually, then it'll be a lot easier when you start to put the whole thing together to make the final product. Okay, hope you've enjoyed this, and stay tuned. I'll keep you updated with progress on this game, and my goal eventually is to see if I can get it onto an Android phone or tablet, and have, instead of using a mouse, just be able to press your finger onto the tablet to shoot or collect things. I'm not really sure yet. Stay tuned.